Welcome to the Zacks Roundtable Review, a discussion of current events affecting investors as well as other topics of financial interest, featuring the analysts and editors of Zacks.com. Well, you knew we had to bring this up sooner or later. That is, which presidential candidate would be better for the stock market? Now, historically, it was believed that a Republican was better for stocks because they tended to favor lower taxes for businesses and less government intervention in big business. But that may no longer be the case in light of the unprecedented steps taken over the past 30 days to try to save the banking sector. So we put a couple of our crack Zacks.com stock analysts on this, and they've come up with a special report. 5 stocks to own if McCain wins, and 5 stocks to own if Obama wins. And they will be joining us in this special edition of the Roundtable. Who is joining me besides them? Well, Charles Rotblatt, of course. He's that man about the markets for Zacks.com, senior market analyst. And then the stock analysts we referred to, Tracy Reinick, who analyzes value stocks for Zacks.com, and Michael Vodicka, who analyzes momentum stocks for Zacks.com, who will try to fill us in on which way the momentum is blowing in this current day before. We're taping this the day before the election, by the way. And we're not trying to show partiality here. We're not going to be talking about the politics of it all, but we do want to talk about some macros as far as the stock market is concerned. And let me just tell you that there are some people out there now on the street who are saying, you know, it's nice to talk about sectors and stocks that would be in favor, depending on which presidential candidate takes the whole Megillah on Election Day. But there are others who are saying there's bigger issues at work. There's bigger issues that are going to be impacting the stock market beyond who wins. What do you think?
Oh, I agree. And the first president, they're going to be greeted on Friday with the employment report. We're going to see a rise in unemployment rate, see more jobs being cut. And there's been a lot of chatter that the most important decision that's going to be made immediately is who the Treasury Secretary is. Paulson's office has been working with both campaigns on getting a transition. It's very important to the financial sector that we get a Treasury sector in there, that Treasury Secretary in there that's really well respected, knows what's going on, is able to navigate us out of this current crisis. And so right off the bat, whoever wins, we should see that. But I think in terms of the election, if Obama wins, possibly a sell on news type situation, maybe a little bit of rally and celebration. If McCain wins, I think at this point all bets are off as to what the market's going to do. It's going to be a huge shock. 538.com is saying 340 electoral votes for Obama. That's really huge. I don't know if he'll get anywhere near that type of victory. Real Clear Politics is saying Obama's up by 7 points on Monday morning, November 3rd. So I do think the markets are very much assuming Barack Obama's going to win, and that's not a surprise. The polls have been showing it that way.
But assuming is different from pricing in.
Right, and
correct?
I think right now, I don't think they're really factoring so much on the election. I think they're really looking ahead of it. But that said, I think if we do get a McCain victory, it will be a surprise, and I think it's anybody's guess as to what's going to happen on Wednesday. But I think for investors, the big thing is they continue focusing on what we've been telling them all along, fundamentally sound stocks with rising earnings estimates, trading at attractive valuations. Now, that said, there are certain stocks and sectors that will have more value and can actually offer more upside depending on who wins the election.
All right. Let's get right to the analysis of it all and the stocks in question here. That we are going to be mentioning a couple of stocks out of this special report. We don't want to give away the entire store here. For you guys, there is also research on the street that indicates, you know, a win for a Democrat could be good for alternative energy, let's say, maybe bad for health care. A win for a Republican candidate could be a boon for defense or a bust for coal and ethanol firms. Is that what you guys found in your research or anything close to that?
Yeah, that's about right. Well, they're talking, you know, energy is kind of the big topic now. Well, it has been for a while, even with crude coming back down. And on the Democratic side, for Obama, it's all about the alternative, as you said. So that's wind, solar. He wants to create, a 5 million green-type jobs over the next, couple decades.
Right.
So those are going to be where the big infrastructure push is going to be. Mm-hmm. But he's also realistic that you're going to have to drill, which is more on the McCain side. He's not against drilling offshore. So they're going to be supportive of that, but trying to push going forward, alternatives going forward into the future instead of just what we've been doing in the past.
Well, if you've watched any of the presidential debates, you'd know that the two candidates have some pretty big differences regarding their energy policy.
Right.
So there's a big issue right there.
Right. It's much more, well, you can talk about the McCain side, but I mean, there's less emphasis on the drill for the Obama side, and much more emphasis on the solar, wind, and hybrid cars, and giving tax credits for people who purchase those, things like that, much more.
Mike, if McCain wins, good for the drug makers?
It is considered to be good for the drug makers because the Democratic agenda, they want to promote nationalized health care, and if that were something that were to come to fruition, it would probably, what they would want to do is drive down the costs of drugs in order to facilitate some cost savings. So on a macro level picture, a Republican victory is not considered to be a boon for the pharma industry in general.
All right. What about the beaten down financials?
Well, I think for either side, I mean, it depends on how you look at it. You know, I mean, you have McCain out there saying he wants to, you know, put a lot of money into reforming the actual mortgages in the housing market.
Right.
You have Obama saying various things about like 401ks, allowing early distribution without being taxed, and things that could impact mutual fund companies and things. So it all depends on what's still going on in that sector, and how the Congress is reacting. Because it seems right now that Congress is trying to push, the current one that we have is trying to push more for a bigger infrastructure play than actually pumping more money into the financials at this point. So it seems that they want to put through another kind of stimulus package that would be much more for, you know, railroads, bridges, airports, things like that.
And I think the big thing for the financial sector is really not so much what the president's agenda is, but really the credit crunch, who they put in the Department of Treasury, and really at what point do we really see an easing of this credit crunch. We're already starting to see LIBOR rates kind of pull back. We're starting to see the TED spread pull back, so that's all positives.
Right.
I think what the presidents do will have some difference on the margins of what the financial companies will do. Certainly, it may impact bonuses and some earnings going forward. But I think the bigger headwind for the financial industry right now is really the recession, people not being able to make their mortgage payments and not being able to make their credit card payments, and the lack of trust they still have.
And you also have another macro issue out there that maybe you haven't thought about, or a lot of people haven't even talked about, and that is the congressional seat issue and the controlling party issue. And if Obama should win, then you've got, you know, a Democrat president in the White House as well as a Democratic Congress and Senate, and so one party controlling all of those, well, at least congressional seats.
Right.
What kind of a macro impact is that going to have on the market?
You know, Jimmy Carter had a Democratic Congress, and it stymied him. So the thought is that Barack Obama, if he wins, is going to push through change. John McCain gets in. There's going to be a bit of a battle on there. He wants to rein in pork barrel spending. And really, when you look at what George Bush did early in his career, he got a lot of programs passed by allowing a lot of pork barrel spending and really through fiscal responsibility outside the door. Mm-hmm. I think the key for whoever gets in the White House is whether or not they can really get true bipartisanship, and that's really going to have a bigger role in terms of getting agenda across than, you know, whether or not the Democrats gain 60 Senate seats, which is what they're trying to do.
All right. Well, let's get to, we promised you two stocks, and true to our word, we're going to start with Tracy, who looked at the Obama situation, and
yes.
One of the stocks in the report that you've highlighted is what, Wabtec?
Wabtec, yes. WAB is the ticker.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really interesting. They make braking systems and various other parts for locomotives and the railroad industry, and they have been since 1860. So they've been around a long time. I've seen big ups and downs in their industry, but their industry is hot again. I mean, there's Congress just passed $13 billion for Amtrak to help with safety issues, and a lot of that will go into the braking systems that Wabtec makes. So they're going to see a big benefit from this recent push that just went through, and who knows what's coming down into the future. Amtrak ridership is surging. Wabtec in their last just reported third quarter a couple of weeks ago, they said that they saw a big gain in sales on the transit side, and it is softening on the freight side, but prior quarters it was reversed. So for the first time, people are getting on board the railroads in the United States. And they also have a lot of international business, and China is crazy. They are going to spend something like $248 billion through 2020 to build 75,000 miles of railroad track across their country. So if they're building the track, they're going to have the locomotives and the parts, obviously, that goes into that. So Wabtec is a good play on what's happening in infrastructure around the world.
All right. No need for name calling, by the way. Said China was crazy. I don't want to start alienating people here.
In a good way. Crazy in a good way.
Mike, you took a look at the McCain situation, and you've outlined 5 stocks that would be positive in a McCain win, one of them being Transocean, RIG, the ticker symbol.
That's right. This relates to something we talked about before earlier with the whole drill platform of the Republican Party. As it stands, domestically, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars importing oil from foreign countries. Our national deficit, 41% of that comes from oil imports on an annual basis. So there's been a big push from the Republicans to try to alleviate some of the pressure that the situation is causing. And like I said, again, going back to one of the things they want to do is they want to get really serious about drilling domestically and exploiting our natural resources here. Transocean, what they do is it's an offshore drilling services company. So obviously they have exposure to energy prices. Energy prices have come down recently, but they're not quite as susceptible to fluctuations in oil and nat gas prices as production and exploration companies. So on a historical basis, as long as energy prices stay high, and right now on a historical basis they are high, companies like Transocean will continue to be profitable. Something else that's interesting about a company like Transocean is that as oil prices have come down since their high of 147 in the summer, you've seen their share price trade down. That's interesting because the estimates have stayed fairly strong for this company. So what that's done is it's created very attractive valuations for Transocean. And if McCain is elected and they push forward with their drill policy, a company like Transocean should do really well.
All right.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out, I think one thing with Transocean, when you look at it, even if Obama gets elected and he gets everything he wants in his energy policy, we're still looking at years because you need an entire infrastructure to make it happen. Yeah. In the meantime, people are still going to use oil. People are still going to drive. China's going to continue growing, and all that bodes well for Transocean.
All right. Do either of you own either of those stocks?
No.
No.
All right. You either?
No, I do not. I do not own it.
One thing is for sure, no matter who wins this presidential election, there will be some impact to stocks in the stock market. And if you would like to learn more about obtaining this special report that our analysts have put together, just go to Zacks.com/special reports, and all of those details will be right there for you. And with the whole crew here on the Roundtable, I'm Terry Ruffalo.